I'm live. I'm still setting up. Coming into this live with my hair on fire. Hold down. Okay, so we are figuring out life. And it took me all the way up until I am here to meet with you. Welcome to the Daily Tune In. It is Monday, December 13th. We are a week and a day, I think it was, when I looked at the calendar a few minutes ago that I've already forgotten. We're coming into the final the final week of the solar calendar. The winter solstice is coming on the 21st. And we've been talking about the 40 days of the intensity starting on November 11th to December 21st. Those 40 days in there have been set up royally for us to feel a lot of upgrades. And they are upgrades, even though they have felt extremely intense for many of us. They've shown up in all different ways. They've shown up in all different expressions for each of us, also in our global world. So it kind of points to the direction of what I was preparing for. I had someone on Friday bring up the 0 point, and I thought that was really interesting because I had been, I've had different perspectives of the 0 point, and over the weekend I was doing some research, and there's so many different aspects of the 0 point and what it means. So I thought it would be a good conversation for today because we are coming, there's, again, depending on what aspect or perspective of 0 point we look at, there's different expressions of the 0 point. So the 0 point is really the moment in time and the moment in space where something comes to a halt, and not really to a halt, but in the form of, if you look at our Earth, Greg Braden had a whole article on the 0 point in which he believes there is going to be a time where our planet comes to a stop and then starts rotating in the opposite direction. And that 0 point is the stop. So although we don't quite stop in all 0 point aspects, what I'm going to talk about today is the 0 point of convergence. The 0 point of convergence is the point in our unique expressions, in our consciousness, in our individual consciousness, in your individual consciousness, where the physical reality of us, okay, I'm going to do it this way as if we're moving in linear time, meets the now moment, which is the spiritual now moment, the spiritual aspect of who we are, and the magnetism of who we are, of our multidimensional being, shifts into another reality. That's the 0 point. Okay, so we have the cross. It's like it's the convergence of one aspect of ourselves that comes together and meets both the physical manifestation of us, meets with divine intelligence, and that divine intelligence is the now moment, and that then shifts. Where that meets is the heart, the center of us, the portal part of us. So when the heart and the physical sense of us and the spiritual sense of us all come together in a convergence in that moment, that's a 0 point for us, and that then shoots us up into a higher dimensional reality, a higher frequency, and into a higher magnetism, which then changes everything for us. That's what my perspective of the 0 point is. And because this week is coming into the winter, the solstice for next week, the solstice is a 0 point. It is the end of one solar cycle and goes into the beginning of a new solar cycle, which changes the magnetism of everything. It changes the magnetism, it changes the frequency. We are now having more and more access to the 5D higher frequencies of being. And I don't know about you, but for me, this is a serious week of literally ascending as high as we can to finish out this solar cycle and to start come the day after the solstice on the 22nd in a brand new year and a brand new expression. That is our baseline frequency. I've been talking about it for a couple of daily tune-ins now, but that is my intention, which is what I'm going to bring to this, this week of daily tune-ins. How can we advance in our consciousness, in our frequency? What can we do to support ourselves to be in the highest consciousness of the final few days of the solar cycle? But I also want to talk about some of the fallout that happens when we reach a zero point in our lives, and we shift into a higher perspective, a higher expression of our lives, because we've reached that time. And there was I like some words that I read, actually. The point, a convergence of the point of the true lifeline. And I loved that those words that I read. And basically, a convergence is when we come together. We're like, oh my gosh, it's a manifestation of being on our true timeline, the timeline that makes our hearts expand, our multidimensional being a resonant, higher resonance of integration. And we go into a higher timeline of existence, a higher dimension, a higher frequency, a higher consciousness, whatever you want to call it. However, there might be some fallout with that. And what happens is, when we come into a convergence, it doesn't mean that people around us come into that same convergence. It doesn't mean that everything follows. So there is some fallout when you go to a higher resonance and those around you stay at a lower resonance. Again, not that you're better or higher than anyone else. However, we all know that if you climb a mountain, right? If you climb a mountain, and the higher you go, the more perspective you have. You can look out and see much more than those who are at the bottom saying, I'm too afraid to go higher. But my world is right. My world is good for me. And it could be good for them, but they have a completely different perspective than you do as you rise up. So what we have to expect is that there is going to be some fallout when we reach these points of convergence, these 0 points of convergence in our lives, where all of a sudden we up level and we go to a higher resonance, and all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we want to go to our friend, be like, you have to come with me, because at this next baseline, this next base camp, so to speak, it's got the most amazing view, and the food is even better, and the this and the that. And they're like, no, like, you don't know what you're talking about, because they don't know it exists. So some notes that I took is that you have to remember that it doesn't mean that those people, as I think a lot of people are afraid to really go for it. They're really afraid to just say, I'm done. I want to live completely for me. I want to get on my soul's timeline, and I'm going to go for it, because that's going to bounce you way up in frequency, and you're going to have to leave some people behind. I know this. I have done it, and it's excruciatingly difficult. But the more that you do it, the more that you be at peace with it. I'm not saying you have to do it multiple times, because I've had to do it a couple of times this year, and it's all I want to do. And yet it gets easier and easier, because as my perspective rises and I learn more and I start to show these people what I'm doing and what's happening, then they start to watch. They start to see how your convergence, they don't know these words, but how your convergence is expanding you and expanding your life and expanding your consciousness. Again, not the words, but they're just going to see how you show up in life. And at that point, then you can say, do you believe me now? Like, this perspective is pretty amazing. So let me help you. Let me help you come here. Let me help you get to not my level. The words are so hard to translate, but you understand what I'm saying. Let the fallout, whatever has to fall away. I'm going to say in this last week, but it may not happen in this last week, but whatever has to fall away in order to keep expanding and to go into 2022 and expand and expand and expand and expand your experience and your expression of life, let it fall away. because that old saying of, what, I forget now, of course I can't think of the saying, but what you let go of, if it's meant to be, will come back. Those that fall out for now temporarily, they'll come back. But those who weren't meant to be there or never meant to be in your life, that fallout will go, and you're going to be like, dang, that's pretty painful to think of, but I guess I'm better off. So we're all living this fallout because there's more and more of us that are coming into a convergence point, into that 0 point. We're about to just expand up. We're moving. We're going into those higher realms of existence. We're in that fourth dimensional phase where our hearts are now leading the way, and there's still some pain to it, but we've got our sights on that fifth dimensional expansive expression of life. Isn't that going to be amazing? I know, as we all come up into the higher 3D and the 4D dimensions of life, it's already expanding enough where we can't quite see it all come together, but we're feeling it. We're feeling the energy, and it feels lighter, but we're still doing the work. So there's like this dichotomy going on of, this is really painful, but I can't go back. We talked about that the last week. But at the same time, we know that this world exists because we're getting glimpses of it. We're sniffing it out. We're smelling it, and it smells pretty damn sweet. So just keep going this week. Just keep your head down, run through the finish line of the solar cycle, do whatever it takes to support you, meaning the big, YOU that I always write means the soul you, the multidimensional you, the higher self of you. Support that this week, because we're coming into a brand new year, and that takes us into 2022, where we get to take that expansion and manifest the shit out of all of this work we're doing. And it's going to be an amazing, amazing year for those of us who have spent this year doing the work. Okay. I think that's it. Let me see. Good morning. I received a message a few weeks ago that I have reached 0 point. Woohoo, Trish. Good job. I don't know if I've reached it. It's weird because I read all these things and I'm like, I've seen moments in time where I'm like, okay, this is a 0 point. This is a convergence. And I think it's just it's an experience in my perspective. This is how I see it. I don't know. It depends. There's an infinite amount of perspectives on 0 point. But I think for me, it's these moments of time that all of a sudden I recognize it. Oh, this is a point. This is where I've just shifted. I've got a 0 point coming up at the end of this week where we're leaving this place that I've been in and coming from in Ukraine. And we're moving, literally moving physically to a brand new location that I think is going to be our expansion point. And at that point, that'll be a 0 point for me. So we all have these expressions of it. Whatever it means to you, celebrate it. Because no matter what it means that something has shifted in a big way when you reach a 0 point, and celebrate that, enjoy it, and then tune into it and say, where is this taking me? Is this exactly where I want to be? Is this exactly what my soul timeline is? And if there's anything on that new direction, that new pathway that doesn't quite resonate, you clear that stuff out. We're getting good at that by now. We understand what this is about. It gets easier. Sweep that away and just know and bless it on its way out and say, if you're meant for me, you'll come back. Whatever that is, whether it's a job, a person in your life, a choice, any kind of choice point that you come across. It's in your highest and best good, sweet souls. It's in my best good. It's in yours. And we are blessing the way for all of us to ascend into an expansive energy for 2022. It's going to be a miraculous year. I can feel it. And the last thing that's coming to me now to say is, in that space for us, the world doesn't happen to us. Anything that happens in the global aspect does not happen to us. We kind of rise above it, and we kind of float. We become kind of invisible to that lower density of world, and it doesn't affect us like it does for those who are still very much in that 3D attachment of the material world. That world is still going to be a rough road. there's going to be, there's going to be a lot of turmoil in that world. But the higher we rise up into the higher dimensionals, expressions of life, that world can't reach high enough to get us to where it pulls us back down. That's a beautiful place to be. So just keep that in mind. 2022 is going to be amazing for those who have done the work to transcend that world and are continuing the transcendent ascension process. Okay. All right. Trish, thanks for mentioning it. I spent the weekend being like, 0 point. What does that mean to me? Did some research and how does that mean? Like, what does that feel me like? So I really wanted to contemplate on it. So thank you for bringing that up. I really I appreciate it because it helped me grow. So thanks for helping me grow, Trish. Thank you all so much for being here. Coming up on Wednesday in the Ascension Bank, I'm going to be doing a wealth code conversation. I never know what's going to be discussed on that because it's a fun, intuitive conversation around whatever the collective is requiring at that point for wealth codes. It's a frequency, it's a higher frequency of wealth and whatever comes up on that Wednesday. So I love that. And I was going to have a mental bank workshop on Saturday, but I have to reschedule that since we're going to be moving and driving 20 hours to a new place. So I'm going to reschedule that for next week. But that is also coming up for this month in the Ascension Bank. So I hope I see you guys there. Thank you for being there. Good morning. Striving to keep my journey balanced. We all are, Christine. So you ain't alone in this crazy world. I feel good, but I also feel like half the time. So we're all on this together and doing our best. As long as you have the awareness and the consciousness about creating balance, you will. And you're going to get really good at it because your awareness is already there. So I'm affirming and holding space for all of us to be in balance, to be in flow, to this week. I mean, forever, but especially this week because this is the final week until the solstice. So I see balance for all of you and myself as I do this move. I see joy, and I also see you making time for your soul to be in those higher frequencies of expression. So much love to you guys. Looking forward to tomorrow. I'll see you then. My husband just got home. It's perfect timing. Mwah. Bye.
I ain't got that shit for you.